Hi there, welcome to the extension for the card reading Ask Rafah number 9. Now, as you can see, there is a spread already done. I actually pulled this spread soon after my answering the question about a woman, Zelda, who wrote in saying that she feels trapped by her overbearing mother, who she seems to sort of not get on with at all. And I go into greater detail in the Ask Rafah number 9. So if you actually want to watch that, do go to my YouTube channel and you will find the heading, I Feel Trapped by My Overbearing Mother, Ask Rafah number 9. Now, the card reading is for me to be able to extend on that reading and see if there's any synchronicity, further advice or insights that I can actually give Zelda. And this is also for anybody who might find themselves being trapped by an overbearing mother. We all have similar problems, and all our problems generally are universal. So I tend to, I love doing these, resolving the problems, and particularly the follow-up on the cards. These are ordinarily uploaded on Vimeo, but I feel that I'm going to actually put this one on YouTube. So for those watching on YouTube, you might find that this will be of help. I'm just changing the format slightly, and to see, I'm going to experiment and perhaps upload these card readings that follow the Ask Rafah for a week or two, and then take it off, make it private, and then whoever doesn't see it the first 2 weeks then can go and see it on Vimeo. They are really good card readings. I feel I really tune into the cards, and I love the choices of cards I make each week regarding whoever or whatever the problem is. Anyway, I don't want to spend any more time talking about how I'm doing this. So for those here, welcome, and thanks for being here. So this is a card reading for anybody suffering from what they feel is an issue with a trapped mother. And what I found really interesting is this. So I did a very general Celtic cross to start with, and I pulled out some other cards from The Soul Journey. There you are, by James Van Praagh, or Praga, however you say his name. Anyhow, I love these cards. They're beautiful. They really highlight very much the issue at hand. Also, the colors are always beautiful, and they correlate sometimes with the chakras. And that's the other thing I do on my Ask Rafah, is I go through the chakra system to do with the problem. And for anybody really stuck, they can actually work on the chakras to help them shift the energy and strengthen and tune up the energy so they can release any of the blocked patterns. Anyhow, so this is, so we start off with the communication card, which you can see here. Okay, this was at the central core, and interestingly, I was quite amazed about how accurate or how correlated this reading was to the advice I originally gave, which is a few days ago, because my battery had run out when I started recording or wanting to record this card reading. So this is like 3 days later, and these cards have stayed to one side, and this is the first moment I got to come back to this card reading. And I decided, rather than do a reshuffle, I kept these cards as I felt that they really speak to the problem and the issue that Zelda had written about feeling trapped by her overbearing mother. So the first thing I actually really did recommend is, I really feel that you need to communicate. Communication is very much key. Now, I don't mind how you do it, what you decide to do, and I think I suggested in the Ask Rafah YouTube was that you can speak to her. Now, if your mother is so overbearing and she does not allow for communication, as some people really can't be told anything but what they want to hear or what they want to believe, I also recommend that you write a letter to her. And what I love about these cards is this is a way for you to bridge things as well. If you look at this image, it really says it a lot. There you see the two figures on a phone and the letters going above. But to me, this is a communication, clearing the air, clearing the space for you to also set the tone of what you feel, what you need, and how you'd like to be able to make the arrangements. Currently, she sees, Zelda sees her mother once in a while, once a week, just for a coffee, and she feels that her mother actually would like to see her more, or have her communicate longer, and mostly in the day via phone, interestingly. And in fact invite her for a holiday, which to Zelda, this is a nightmare. Anyhow, Yeah, so I would say you would really need to communicate and be very honest what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. I think the reason you feel have a real issue is a sense of real valuelessness that you have. This has been instilled since in your childhood, which is interesting as well, because in the letter that you had written, you say that you had a good childhood. Now, a lot of people, most people actually come from very dysfunctional families, and most people who actually believe that they come from really good family also don't realize that there's been some sort of something that's happened that would have sort of set the tone for them in some way in their adult life. And I have to sort of say, I really would assume, Zelda, that you don't actually get on very well with your mother, as you say yourself, actually, and you just don't click. But you don't like the way she is. You are very judgmental over what she does, which is also interesting because we got the card here as well. Okay, so I'll come back to that. Yeah, so you have an issue with something along your childhood. I think you were told what to do, how to do things, and you, I think, felt very small, hence your sense of feeling dominated by your mother and your mother being able to slam the phone down on you. Now, in the letter you also go on to sort of say that your father had died, over 20 years ago, and your mother, while she has a very active life, she's 79, active and belongs to many groups, if I remember rightly, but nevertheless you really feel that you're sacrificing yourself. So these are the cards I basically got, and I'm in fact going to turn the camera up because I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable doing it this way. So I'm going to continue with the reading that I was started, and that's probably at the beginning, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this reading now. So at the start of and at the core of the problem here is, I think, communication that you really need to get resolved with your mother and express what you need to do, what you intend to do, and possibly even I feel that you need to actually communicate with your brother, who you mentioned is in America, and while he's sympathetic, you tend to find yourself doing all the kind of nursing your mother, or certainly going to visit her. So I find it's really important right now that you communicate with your brother and tell him that you actually want to possibly share the load. Maybe make a suggestion where she can visit him once a month, or for a month every so often, maybe 6 months or something. So make an arrangement that where it's not all on you. I feel that the actual ongoing issue here is what's crossing the situation is you actually feel very small. Somehow your mother manages to make you feel very small, and you've instilled a sense of valuelessness, despite the fact that you actually tell me in your letter that you had a good childhood and she hasn't done anything wrong, but you find her very negative and judgmental. Somehow also I feel that I feel also what's really crowning the situation, which is really interesting, is the fact they've got the sacrifice card. So here it is that she's actually steps all over you, which is something that you really don't like, because you feel as well that she tends to dominate the situation, and I feel like you're also making a sacrifice. So in some way, which is very typical of one of the siblings, when the parent lives near them, that they are the ones that tend to sacrifice time and energy taking care of the parent or parents. And I think this is what's really happening with you as well. But the thing with sacrifice is nobody wins. You know, your mother probably knows that you're doing her a favor, because she can probably feel it, and you are also not in favor actually of doing what you do, because you don't like her particularly very much, because you say she's negative and judgmental. So you are not getting anything out of that sort of the duty that you've put yourself through and sacrifice. What's interesting is in one of the cards that I pulled out to do with the soul's journey, right next to sacrifice is service. And I'm just wondering if you can actually turn itself on its head, so to speak, Zelda. And this is for anybody watching. You know, one can feel, in the mantra here says, I feel good when I can help others. Now, when we help others, and we really come from that place of just making a reframe, a reshift, and instead of seeing it that's something you have to do, as you are with your mother, perhaps you can actually put it into your heart space and really come to think of the fact that by helping her, by actually helping. It doesn't matter if it's your mother, but if you saw her maybe not as your mother, but somebody you would go and see, like an elderly. You know, there's lots of community groups, lots of people do volunteering work for the elderly, going to visit them and maybe spending some time with them, and you really come out feeling enriched. And I really suggest that possibly, instead of having it as a sacrifice, okay, or seeing it as a sacrifice, you can actually be of service to your mother, and perhaps that will change the dynamic completely and get you out the sense of the valuelessness that has been instilled in you somewhere along the way. I'm not utterly convinced that you haven't got an issue, a deep inner child issue that is running you at the moment, because for some reason your mother does have a hold over you, very much so. And I would say also that yeah, she has a sense of control, like it says here sometimes, that I've had the phone slammed down on me. So she tends to control, she loses her sense of self, right? And I you know, when people get older as well, they tend to sort of get a bit more cantankerous and a bit more difficult, no question. And I also will find that possibly after she lost her husband for the 20 years, despite the fact that she's got an active social life and everything else, maybe, just maybe, it's kind of like a front or a self-managing technique, and she actually is quite lonely and getting quite brittle with the idea of feeling that she's misunderstood, or maybe she wants you to understand her in a way, and be able to be communicated to, where you are much closer, both of you. So I do feel like you have an opportunity to do some healing around your communication. If you came from the place of service more, you will certainly possibly find that you actually enjoy her. What's at the root of your situation is you're definitely being controlled, okay? And for some reason, as you can see in this image, there's a guy with puppet strings and two puppets on either side. So there's a sense of control. When she slams the phone down, she's emotionally controlling you, and you are trying to control the situation as well by trying to really limit when you see her, when you don't see her as well. So there's a double dynamic here on her part and your part. I also feel that possibly the reason she controls you is because she senses that you lack self-esteem, all right, which is another card that came next to that control. Okay, now when we value ourselves and we have a sense of self, we tend not to feel guilty about whether we see people or not, or guilty for not doing something or not. And this all comes down to the esteem. Now these things are very, very difficult to shed, not because they're hard, it's just because they're layers upon layers of story. You know, the shadow, this is, you also got this is, you know, it's in your unconscious, this is what's behind you, this is sort of what's running you as well. Okay, that when we have a dominant mother or a parent, it is a story from a childhood that somehow has become bigger than it actually is. Again, if you look at this, you can see the shadow there is much bigger than the actual figure, and that's what it is. These situations, how we project onto people, tend to be a lot bigger than it actually is. But when you have the sense of self and sense of self-esteem and sense of reliance on your core in your inner world, you will find that she won't be dominating and controlling you. There won't be a control. You're just able to release yourself from the feeling that she has you on a puppet string. Okay, also what I find here is, I'm just going to carry with these cards, is that you have the revenge. Now this revenge card I think really correlates really well with the fact, as you say, I wish I could move away, but I feel guilty. But if you really look at the image, and something I think I said this as well already, was that by you changing your life, because you just feel like running away from your mum to make, you know, to, I guess, almost avenge the fact that she can't get hold of you, or you won't be able to be there for her, that you'll be creating a life for your family. You have a daughter and a son who actually lives with you, but also in a partnership who's a father of your son together, that in doing that you'll be actually creating more problems for yourself. And as you can see in this image, I think it's brilliant. There you can just about see it if it goes oops. Anyway, the cracks on the ice, which means her world is just going to fall beneath her feet, and I think that is exactly what you will be creating. I followed it up with a couple more cards, and this is actually from the Chuck Spezzano Psychology of Vision cards, and I love these because you get into the deeper layers of what's actually happening. And here, this is a sense of neediness. You know, I feel like in some way, really what's running is you probably don't even admit the fact that you actually need her on some way, or you don't like to feel that you're being needed, and you can sense that, and your natural instinct is to want to pull away. Okay, when we come out of a place of neediness, either by being needed or being the needy one ourselves, the natural situation that would happen is we would like to repel and walk away. I really feel like in some way what you really need to do is you need to able to let go of what you believe is happening and the judgments that you have. Firstly, you've got to really let go of the fact that she's negative and she's judgmental. Okay, she may be those things, and I can understand that that is a very hard thing to be around. But if you actually communicate it and you actually drew the boundary, which your self-esteem will do, is to sort of say, Mum, I don't mind coming to see you, but I'm not going to actually accept you being negative and judgmental all the time, because maybe it tires me out, or I find it really negative and I don't enjoy that kind of conversation. Let's have a different kind of conversation, and you can put the boundaries and the parameters of what kind of conversation you like to have. Now, if she decides to be, you know, again, really cantankerous and all that, you can still come up a place of service and realize that this is not really about you, but you serving another person. So this is about you going above and beyond yourself. Now, the other thing which I want to bring back to the shadow is I feel like you're worrying a lot, okay? That this worry has gotten out of hand. And here's the card as well. And really, in fact, you know, worrying about certain things doesn't actually solve the problem. It doesn't change anything. What needs to change is really for you to change your esteem and actually get that going. And possibly even, I got this lovely card, use your imagination. Maybe start imagining what kind of time you'd like to spend with her. You know, maybe put that in place in your mind's eye as to what kind of experiences would you like to have. Maybe do something you can both enjoy doing together, so it's not about you going to see her for a coffee, and maybe spend the kind of time that you both get nourished by, which I would think would be really, really nice. Because the other thing that you commented actually in your letter as well was the fact that she gets jealous, it sounds like from what you say, that you do things. So maybe you can actually even communicate about that and say, I notice, Mum, that you sound jealous. So is there anything about that? What is going on for you? And maybe she does get envious, the fact that you tend to do things that she would maybe like to do with you, but you're not allowing her to actually engage with you that way because there's too much of a push and pull going on, certainly in your kind of experience of her. You know, I think it's kind of nice maybe that if you can establish, which is also another card that came up for you, was the friendship. Perhaps don't see her as your mother, which is really hard thing to do, but maybe you can use imagination to actually change that concept, that rather than she being your mother, you can maybe see that you're actually meeting a friend, an elderly friend. So there's a detachment to your experience of her, and then perhaps you can be of service, okay? You know, and this goes for anybody who actually might go and see the mother and stuff. You know, we have so much dynamic and so much inner child woundings and stuff that it's very easy to slip into this sort of mother-daughter dynamic that had been established from a very young age. But when we get older, they tend to sort of still exist. But as we change and as we grow, it is really up to us to do the shifting. Because, you know, I will say that most people don't necessarily change, but our parents who are in that age group, 70s, late mid 70s, 79, they're not the ones who are aware of this kind of inner work you do. But one thing I can say for certain is that there will be a shift of energy, definitely, when you change your dynamic towards her. It will just shift it, and it just does that. So rather than wait for her to change and you worrying about that, how your experience of her is going to be and what she needs to do maybe to not affect you, why don't you change yourself by building up your esteem? I also got this card of grief, which possibly also could relate to you or your mother as well. Maybe she's still grieving in some way, and not really kind of come to terms with it. And you don't say anything about if you'd ever have a chat. You know, perhaps you actually meeting her in a certain way where you can maybe experience both your loss. You know, you lost your father and she lost her husband, and perhaps through that you can also meet and share the grief. You know, all this card can also inform you maybe when you need to grieve not having the mother that you want or can have. Now, I find that that is quite common. Sometimes we go to our parent that we've always wanted a certain kind of love or a certain way kind of loving, and every time we show up to them, we're totally disappointed, you know, of how they are showing up, because in essence they are unable to be the mother or the father that you've ever wanted, usually. But again, I think sometimes when we actually grieve and accept the reality of not really having that somehow we can release the judgment, okay, and then interestingly come from a place of maybe result. And also this friendship card, which was actually around the outcome area. But in order to heal the situation, I think you need to let go, which is also really matches this grieving card. You see there's a pit there, which is like, you know, you can actually maybe grieve what you don't have with her, all the things that maybe she's been to you over the years, all the annoyances, and maybe write a letter of your grievances, and so you can bury it, you know, bury the hatchet, you know, let go of the ideology of what your mother should do, be like, and how she should speak to you and stuff like that. Because in doing that, you create this space for something really amazing to come through. Underneath the deck of this card, which I tend to look at, the overall energy is true love, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to interpret this in two ways. This could mean that you have love for yourself, totally unbinding love, which means that you're able to actually show up. When we have unbinding love for ourselves, we can show up for people in so many ways and still very joyously. The other thing I think also is, this is very powerful in the sense that you could possibly have this wonderful love together with your mother and your mother for you, and her negativity and judgment possibly is a mask or a veneer that she puts on for maybe feeling quite unhappy, but you have a wonderful opportunity to help heal that for her, you know. And here we have the card underneath the soul deck as well, a sense of pride. Perhaps again, you know, you're allowing your pride from a previous wounding to get in the way, or by relinquishing. It says here, I love myself and I see myself in everyone, which also kind of really matches the judgment. When we release judgments, okay, we become less projecting, you know, and by having pride for yourself, you can also accept and really appreciate other people as well, and perhaps maybe see your mum's pride without you being judgmental about it. Okay, this is not so much a problem that I think that needs to be solved, but for you to be aware of the overall energies that you have sort of found yourself. So, you know, let go of the sacrifice and possibly be more of service. Be mindful, and if you ever feel bad about where your mother and how she's communicating, go into your inner child and perhaps find what it is about that you don't like, and see if there's been any correlation between anything that had been said when you were younger, and see if that could be a sticking point and what jars you. I think that would also release the control that she has over you, and somehow by you gaining your self-esteem and really being clear about your boundaries and communicating what you're willing to do as well, without being too controlling, but maybe allowing for some spontaneity to be in the space, I think that'd be really wonderful for your friendship. And like I said, do maybe turn around the situation and not stop seeing her as your mother, but as a friend or some elderly lady that you go and visit, which means you'll be a lot politer, a lot more tolerant, and a lot more allowing, and perhaps come up with some good ideas as to where you can go together. And maybe, just maybe, she'll stop being jealous as to where you are both, what you do, as you've sort of said. I think she maybe like to spend time with you, and maybe she doesn't know how to say it. So I'm just going to pull another card here for you from the Sacred Rebel Oracle deck by Alana Fairchild, which looks like this. Okay, and we'll see what advice and what Spirit has to say to you about this situation and how this will help you also. Okay, that's quite nice. I'm going to go with this one. because this one fell on the floor and it turned. This is going beyond the normal. Okay, so this is really asking you to go above and beyond, like I sort of said about being of service, and perhaps how can you bring inspiration and greater ideas, and maybe how can you spend the time. So I feel in some way that you're actually restricting yourself by somehow being caught up in a sense of valuelessness and the control and some previous shadow that you have. And I recommend that you might go and see a therapist or somebody to help you through this. And I'm sure you're not going to exactly like my answer, but otherwise do some really serious self-inquiry, because I think this really is lovely. This is an opportunity for anybody really to go above and beyond your normal thinking and your normal self, you know. And you can see here that there's like a light bulb moment of thinking creatively, maybe using your imagination that will spark some kind of idea and stuff, and maybe stop thinking so much about the kind of time you have to spend here, because you're the one who's actually been controlling by sort of thinking that because you're right here, I think that she wants the kind of daughter who phones her every day and invites her on to go on holiday, you know, which the idea for you is quite horrendous. So perhaps maybe think of another way they can actually spend some quality time. That could be segments of a holiday, like just an hour or two or a few hours in the afternoon, where you can maybe go and see the gallery or do something different. Okay, I feel like in some way you have the key to a healing here, and I think you have the ability to see beyond what is in front of you. Release the time, and yeah, let your inspiration come into the space. I'm just going to see if there's anything that I could possibly add. Yeah, the healing for this says, I now call on unconditional love and ask for blessings of the heart to be witnessed and sanctioned by the great universal creator, so that I may rise above small-mindedness and use the best of what human culture has to offer in service to love through my own free will, so be it. Well, like I said, this really suits this card. So this is what's really asking you. Sometimes, you know, all our relationships are an opportunity for us to kind of come from a place of love, peace, and just grow more. But we can only do that when we have a real sense of self-esteem, which is also equates to self-love. Okay, release the worry. This is what's holding you back. Really, it's all a whole lot of noise, as far as I'm concerned. And I think by you just rising above, you will find that you will able to shift whatever issue you have with your mother, and really show from a place of your magnificence as well. Here it says, I dare to live creatively from my heart and thrive. Okay, and I think this is such a wonderful opportunity for you to really bond with your mother, and also maybe you would find that you'd fall in love with yourself again and not have that be an issue. So I hope this is really helpful for anybody who actually might find that you are feeling trapped by your mother or parent. I can tell you something, there's always an opportunity for us to change things around, and please do. I hope you can take something from this reading that will really help you, but I recommend that you do go beyond what we think is the norm and create something magical and something beautiful for you to share with yourself and your mum. So thanks for watching, and I hope you like this video. And you can, all my details are below on the links below or the highlighted bits below, and you can do whatever you like. Either contact me for a reading or just come back to YouTube to follow the Ask Rafah Problems and Dilemmas Answered. And also on Vimeo there is an extension where there is a meditation and chakra meditation where you can actually real heal the issues which we will look at. So I'll be looking at the issues of valuelessness, control, which is all to do with your solar plexus here. And this is when the heart sort of feels wounded and we tend to sort of walk away, and many other multitude of things. So please do look at the Vimeo, and you can heal your shadow self when you feel trapped by anybody, and you will get what you need from those chakra strengthening and tune up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.